Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast, where we answer your sales distress calls. I'm Liz Hyman, and each week I'm joined by your crew of seasoned sales experts who have navigated these waters and come out victorious. So if you're ready to turn your sales distress into sales success, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's topic.
Welcome to the Sales SOS broadcast. I am Liz Hyman, your host, and I am here with your Sales SOS podcast crew. Bryn Tillman, Renee Bigelow, Daryl Prell, and Mike Simmons, and Chris Bowen may join us shortly. Hello, everyone. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well.
You seem like you're in a chipper mood, like you're upbeat. Normally you're just, so boring and down. Like, what's up?
I know. Actually, it's totally faked, but we won't tell anybody, okay?
Fair enough. It's looking good. You got me fooled.
Excellent.
I don't know about the rest of you, but I am neck deep in strategic planning season right now.
Right? Okay, so this week I want to talk about scaling because we get a lot of questions about scaling. And I think that there's this inevitability when you start scaling anything that you create a certain amount of chaos. Certain things break, certain things are unpredictable. What worked with one or two maybe doesn't work with four or five. So there's this chaos that happens anytime you start scaling. But I think it is uniquely difficult with a sales organization. What do you guys think?
I got my list, Liz.
We have a knack for understatement. That's all I got to say.
Okay, so if you are one of the CEOs, COOs, founders who is thinking about trying to scale your sales organization, or perhaps you're in the midst of scaling, or maybe you're like so many people that come to me saying, I tried and it didn't work, and now I don't know what to do. So let's get ahead of this question. What is it that makes it so hard to scale a sales organization? And before I really dive into that, we're going to talk about the ideas that we come up with in the next 3 episodes. We'll actually talk about some of the solutions, but let's just really throw out the problems. Why is it so difficult?
Well, I have a good one for us to start with because I think it sets a frame for much of what else we will talk about, which is whenever you scale, things break all across the organization, right? One of the reasons it felt so acutely in sales is where you're exposing to the public, right? Sales is where the outside world is interacting with your internal chaos and the most, right? So you have a little more leeway. You may have complete chaos in operations, but not everybody's seeing it. Whatever's happening with sales, as you get that chaos as you're scaling, or inside your company where the chaos is happening, sales is where it becomes visible. So I think that's kind of a good frame for the rest of the conversation about why it's so hard to scale in sales.
I think that's spot on, Renee.
So I'll throw in, right? Like, first of all, teams talk about they want more business, right? When you think scale, let's start with more revenue. If we're going to scale, we want more revenue. But what does that mean? Does that mean more volume? Does that mean that we have additional programs for existing clients? And how are we going to go after that, right? What does more revenue really break down to? So I think really understanding, just saying I want to scale, this is, okay, so I'm going to go hire 3 more sales reps, right? But we want to look at what does scaling mean from a business perspective, and then back in the resources that you need to meet that goal.
So when we're growing, really, we have 3 choices, right? We can sell more things to the people we already sell to. We can sell the things we already sell to people we currently don't sell to, right? Or we can, I forgot what the third one was.
Well, we can expand markets, right? We can go into new markets with our products.
Right.
I bet you that was the third.
That was that. I do this all the time and I just lost it. But if you think about, there aren't a lot of ways to grow, right? I can sell more of something, I can sell something new, or I can sell something to new people or more to new people. So I don't have a lot of choices. So when I'm thinking about scaling, I have to put it in that context, which is what Bryn is saying. Am I growing the existing and scaling the existing accounts? Am I going to hire a whole new sales team to go out after all new accounts? Like, what am I doing? And I think if you're not clear about the path, the strategy, where you want to go, it's really hard to scale effectively. Mike, it looks like you have something to say.
Yeah, well, the other one I would add in there from a growth perspective is you can increase your prices too. So you can that's another way to kind of push some of the numbers up if that's what you're looking for. One of the big problems when it comes to people is as you add more humans into the equation, things get more complex. People use those voices, they try to do more things. And specifically on the sales side, if you bring someone in who's really good at helping their customers solve problems, they may decide that problem is the most important problem inside the organization. And then they start trying to influence all of the internal people to make that happen, which creates some pretty big challenges.
So one of the things that people assume, that business owners assume, is if I have one salesperson and that's working, if I want to grow, I'll just add a second. And then if I want to grow more, I'll add a third and a fourth and a fifth. And what we typically see is that rather than that doubling, tripling, quadrupling your revenue, you're not getting nearly as much from the second, third, fourth, fifth salesperson as you maybe got from the first.
That is true. And I think a lot of it is, when you're starting with one salesperson, right? There's a different passion. They often come in ground floor or soon after that. There's a strong connection with all the executives, and they probably build the full sales process internally, right? Based on whatever they brought to the table and their knowledge. So they own a lot more than the second salesperson. At least that's what I have seen. And why that it starts to fall off is I think, we think we can scale or duplicate that first salesperson, and likely it's not going to work the same way. So onboarding is going to be very, very different, and expectations and managing that person are probably going to be very, very different than the entrepreneurial salesperson that grew it from the beginning with you.
Mike, you got something, share it with us.
Well, the other one that happens is when people think that they're going to be able to bring someone in who sells like the founder or the owner of the business, right? And they feel like that's the thing that they need to do. And if everybody would just sell like them, then everything would be good. Or if they just got the more meetings, everything would be good, and we'd just be able to grow. And that's not the case. So it's very tough to make that transition from founder-led sales to founder amplified and then founder augmented as you go through it. Because people are different.
Why, Mike? Why can't I hear this all the time. Why can't my salespeople sell as much as I did? Just go do what I do. Make this happen. I just don't understand. I could be selling more myself. Why am I paying people to do this?
And that's a reason why it's not scaling, because the fact that they even ask that question tells you that you're already in trouble. Well, that's an aside. When you put this out there, what are the top challenges around scaling? I immediately came up with Daryl's top 5 reasons. Doesn't mean that the right top 5, but these are Daryl's top 5. I want to watch Mike's reaction. Number 1, sales candidate quality. Reps, I find, are fantastic at selling themselves in the interview, but 1 in 2, 1 in 3 suck in real life. So just saying that, right? So quality, number 1. Number 2, training, the ability to actually have, teach people. It's 2-part. Your ability to teach them how to sell to your audience, objection handling, all that wonderful stuff, value props. Their ability to receive the training, equally challenging. Number 3, this is my nod to Renee amongst my many other nods to Renee. Processes. All right. So you want to scale, but you've got to have the systems and the processes to facilitate scaling. Otherwise, it's the wild, wild west. Kind of get back to what Mike was saying, right? Everybody does it a little bit differently. Number 4, This alludes a little bit to what we were talking about earlier about new markets. Product market fit. You may have enough business for 1 rep or 2 reps, but you may not have enough business for 5 reps or 10 reps. All right. So product market fit, something we don't talk about a lot, and something that the founders rarely want to hear, because as far as they're concerned, it's the best damn product ever in the world. And when they were just in startup mode, they had no problem. Exactly your point. And number 5, misaligned expectations. Scale is open to interpretation. For some, that means 100% linear growth. For others, that means, a bit of a flattening. So if you have misaligned expectations, somebody's going to think you're not scaling, when the reality is you might be scaling just fine.
I think that's really, really important. Again, going back to what is the expectation? And I often hear founders, particularly those who are trying to get funding, we're going to 10 times sale.
Yeah,
or
10x it, baby.
We're going to 10x it. Or our investors want 10x. And 10x, that's tough, right? It not only do you have to have the internal.
You just got to hustle more. Don't you know that, Liz?
Hustle.
Well, come on, there's at least 2 books out there that tell you how to
10x is easier than 2x, apparently.
Exactly. And, 10x is easier than 2x, and 10x, what's it? 10x is better than 2.
You just got a Grant Cardone.
Is a pretty good book. The Cardone one, I don't know that it is, but
yeah.
Anyway,
but let's talk about it. What is 10x when you're talking? You guys, if you're listening and not watching, there's a lot of laughing going on, and I'm not going to explain what made the laughter, but okay.
But you can rewind and figure it out.
Yes.
Rewind and figure it out. Okay. So why when you have a sales organization is 10xing painful? Like, okay, so I'm going to go out tomorrow and I'm going to hire 10 new sales reps. I got 1. It works. We know what to do. Now we're going to hire 10. Let's go.
So I'm going to steal it from the book. 10x is greater than 2x. It is a pretty good book, actually. It's hard to do because you have to give up a lot.
Yes.
So what to 10x, according to the book, which is, I really enjoyed it. I just was making some fun around this. They really talked about a realtor who scaled like nuts, right? Like crazy. And what happens is you have to give up the 80% of the business that you have that isn't going to allow you to scale, and focus on just that 20%. So why is it hard? Because there's a huge sacrifice up front to get the reward in the back end. You have to be willing to be hungry and to live off of bridge loans from banks while you're doing it. Like, it's scary. So that's why and when they say it's easier, on paper, it's easier. Mentally and emotionally, I love the book and I did nothing with it because I'm not willing to give up my, $97 a month client, whatever that looks like. Right. So that's my thought of why it's not happening.
And just for everybody's purpose, it's a book by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy, and they've partnered on a couple of other books. Who Not How is another one, and it's really, like, to build on Bryn's point around it. It's about making sure you've got the right people doing the right things at the right time in the right order, which gets into a lot of the systems and process stuff that we've talked about before. One of the challenges that founders or business owners who are the primary sales rep, the one who's been doing it for however many years, runs into is they have a hard time letting go of being that sales rep. So they bring in somebody new to go in there and sell and expect them to sell the way that they're going to sell. And then when they're in there, they insert themselves into those conversations and start selling the way that they sell, which creates a lot of confusion. So they have a really hard time letting go of the things that they like doing. So you've got to make some choices here. I think one of the things that hasn't come up yet that's a really hard problem, in addition to what Daryl talked about as far as the talent pool that's out there, it's our inability to hire properly. Like,
bingo.
Okay, and we go through.
Nailed it.
Like, if we lack process on the sales side, I am certain they lack process on the hiring side. it's you're talking about acquiring internal customers into your business versus acquiring external customers as part of your business. And if you lack the process on the sales side, I'll say it again, you likely lack process on the hiring side. And if the person operating your process on the hiring side happens to come from HR or people or personnel or one other role, you're in trouble.
Well, hiring salespeople, I think, is different than hiring any other kind of employee. And we can talk about this in one of the next episodes, but it is a different set of criteria that you use. Anyway, let's dig into that deeper later. So it's really simple. We hire the right people. We hire a whole bunch of them, and we give up 90% of something we're not really sure. Guys, this isn't coming out so easy. Go ahead, Renee.
Renee's got the answer.
So I think that's the kind of the start. And yes, processes and systems. And why do I like those? Because they actually get us moving on to bigger and better things, right? Rather than staying on the whole day. Like, I'm not, if you saw my life in general, I'm not like the biggest live in process and systems, right? But I think that everyone, when it comes to scaling, sales is where the rubber meets the road. But for the most part, most people are looking for the silver bullet. And I think in sales, they automatically think, I'll hire more reps. We need to talk to this many more people. The math says this, right? And the reality is, in order to scale, there is a complex system that needs to shift completely. You likely do need to change prices. You likely do need to change your packaging and offer and your offering. You likely do need to change your onboarding process, your delivery methods, your operational side, even your accounting side. And all of that has to happen sort of together, right? And to Bryn's point of what you have to give up, you very rarely see someone scale in revenue, in reputation and brand, and in service quality, like an up and to the right hockey stick. What it looks like in the end is up and to the right, but there is often a dip, right? And those dips are where those systems are leveling out. So sales sells a lot more stuff. Customer satisfaction goes way down. You lose some accounts. They come back. You need to change the type of target market you're selling to because you need to sell more expensive things. You're going to take that dip that Bryn talks about, right? So yes, the 10x may seem easier in the end than 2x, but it glosses over all of that in most instances. I haven't read that book, but I have lived through this in multiple companies, and it's always glossed over how that all works together. And I think that's where everybody wants to look at, and don't get me wrong, they look at marketing way more about this 10x thing than sales. But in sales, they think bodies are what they can throw at it. In marketing, they think they can just throw yelling at it, essentially. No new resources. But the throwing bodies at it is only one piece of it, because if they all succeed in selling something, now you've got your next bottleneck in delivery or your next bottleneck in satisfaction or whatever it is. And there's no one silver bullet. And I think sales is the first place that they like focus in and be like, okay, it's all working great. I'm just going to hire more people. Well, okay, then even if your operational capacity is going okay, right? Then the next place you're going to point is marketing is not doing enough leads, right? Because you didn't add more marketing resources to feed more sales mouths, right? Like it's a one complex system, and you can't you'll end up looking like those cartoon characters that are like super built up muscles on the top and like teeny little scrawny stick legs, right? Like you just topple over, and that's what happens.
I think there's another really important piece to this, which is this is not adding another machine to the operational, to the manufacturing floor. Okay, well, we've always done this part by hand. Now we're going to add a machine and it's just going to do it. We're adding people, and we're not adding people who are going to repeatedly do the same thing on an assembly line. We're adding people who are going through a whole process and series of activities with their own personality and their own way of doing things. And those people are all going to do it differently, right? And if we don't have a way to manage that, we have a problem. So not only if I'm the CEO, and my sister Alice will say all the time, if you are the CEO, you are still always responsible for sales. But if I have all of these other things to do, and now I'm responsible for managing not one salesperson, but 10 salespeople, how am I going to do that? And where did I ever learn to manage 10 salespeople anyway? And the processes and systems and guide rails that we need for one salesperson or two salespeople or even three salespeople is really different than what you need when you start getting to 20 or 10 or 20 or 30 salespeople, right? What changes is everything, not just a piece, right? And this is what Renee is saying. It's not just the people, but it's everything that touches them. It's all the places they touch. So it becomes really complicated, right? And I hear this, I don't know if you guys hear this all the time, but I hear it constantly. Well, I've been trying to hire salespeople. I've hired 3 people. I fired 3 people. None of it's working. And I said this at a conference the other day, and somebody walked up to me afterwards and he said, I swear you were reading my mind as I was sitting there. And I'm like, no, this is real. This is what happens. So why does it work?
Ernesto, I don't understand why we have scaled. We bought a list.
We bought a list. I know, I love that one. Funny story, Liz. I was actually talking to a CEO the other day, and they said exactly what you just said. So then I said, can I talk to some of your sales reps? And can I talk to your marketing people? So I talked to an AE, I talked to an SDR, and I talked to the marketing person. You know, all 3 people said these are individual, private, what we talk about stays on the table, doesn't go back to anybody. They all said the same thing. Stop letting our CEO hire sales people. They don't know what they're doing. And this is a smart individual, but just because you're smart doesn't mean you have the skills to hire every single role in the company.
No.
Yeah.
No. And I think, as I said, I think hiring sales is unique, really
It's hard.
unique. All right. So
The one thing I want to say that I feel like gets lost in hiring, just side note, is understanding the relationships they're bringing to the table. So,
and let's jump into that in our next section, because I'm about to go there. So let's jump into it because I think it's so important.
That's your cliffhanger, folks. Tune in next week.
Tune in for our next episode.
And Bryn's answer.
So what makes it hard? Let's just recap. One is that you need systems and processes, and probably the first person who came into the organization figured out how to make things work for themselves and didn't really figure out how they were going to make that work for other people. Or if it was the CEO doing it, they probably don't even know exactly what they did and why it worked. So now we need to figure out what the job is. We need to figure out what the process is. We need to figure out how to hire the right people to do that process. We need to figure out how to manage those people. And we need to figure how many we can support at one time and what needs to change in terms of product, in terms of market, in terms of lead generation. All of those things are going to support all of these new people that are doing sales. Anything to add to that?
I think one of the top things that I think gets glossed over, and again, I'm sitting from a marketing point of view, but this highly impacts sales, is as you're planning to scale, you have to revisit your assumptions for what have gotten you to where you are. And I'll just start with like your target persona, your ICP, your market that you're going to, that if you're going to scale, I haven't yet found an exception to we need to revisit that, because your first customers often don't look like your next customers. There are things that will always carry through, likely a psychographic of some sort is what's going to, a firmographic or a psychographic or something is what's going to carry through. But you really have to dig in to figure out what is the through line between those first customers and your next customers when you're planning on scale. And you need to, if you don't do what Bryn mentioned, which is give up a bunch of customers immediately, if you need those customers to be your bridge to the next thing, you have to find out, you have to figure out how you're going to segregate those two things, right? Like I think there's a lot of homework that people just really want to skip because they think, I want to do this today. Especially if it's still a founder-led company, this is where my mind is today and I want to jump to it, right?
Mike, you were going to say something.
Well, I think the piece that the theme or the thread that has kind of been going through a lot of this is be really clear around what your definitions are of the thing that you're trying to do. And make sure that the team's aligned on those definitions, and then make sure that the work that you're doing and the decisions that are made are aligned with those definitions, and then make sure that the decisions are aligned with the next thing. Like you're working the misalignment relative to trying to do this stuff too fast, or doing it because you've got some idea on how it's going to work, is the thing that will create more friction in your business. It will reduce integrity in your business, and we'll get to a situation where everything starts to fall apart. And ultimately you'll lose a lot of people, specifically those people who, because you start to specialize as part of the scaling process, get frustrated that they no longer get to do the thing that they really liked doing before, that they may not have necessarily been good at, but they like doing it, and they're not the right fit. So this is hard stuff. The reason it's very hard stuff.
So can I paraphrase?
Sure.
If you don't want chaos, then you can't just do things haphazardly.
Perfect.
Is that where we are? All right, let's jump in our next episodes. Let's really dive into some of the things that we need to do in order to scale effectively. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Sales SOS podcast.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Sales SOS podcast. A huge thank you to our experts for throwing us a lifeline with their insights. We hope that episode has equipped you to navigate sales leadership with confidence. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to your Sales SOS podcast on your favorite platform. If you have questions, comments, or topics you'd like us to explore, join us live on LinkedIn every second Friday, or share your questions on LinkedIn or YouTube. Until next time, keep sailing toward your sales goals.